Hi, welcome back to the Hornthrowers podcast. I am presenting this on my own again because this time Rob isn't in fact violently ill. He is at a festival, which I'm not going to. I am Olivia and I am joined by Corey from Shape of Storms Records. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. A little, a little haggard, a little tired, but otherwise I'm okay.
That's the usual though for staying up till 2 a.m. and then working day.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what happens when you have to go see international grindcore bands play in a different city on a weeknight. That's what happens.
you've got to do what you've got to do. Me and Rob
Yeah,
went to go see Judas Priest in Birmingham, which is like
nice.
so we're in North Wales and Birmingham is like the Midlands. It's like a good 2, 3 hours in the train. Uh,
Sure.
and those, because it's the UK, there's train strikes all the time. So I was off because I'm smart. I booked the day off. Rob didn't. He was in at 11 o'clock, like 11 a.m. So we missed the last replacement bus because it was a replacement bus. So we had to wait till in the airport, in Birmingham Airport, until like 3 a.m. to get, or 2 a.m. to get a coach. We got into Chester, which is like our nearest like city. We got
Sure.
like 5 a.m. Got back home to Wrexham at like 6:30. And I was like, I can go to bed, I'm fine. And he was like, I'm at work at 11. I've got 5 hours,
Yeah.
5 hours sleep. So
Five. That's five's great.
it
Five or
is.
six is perfect.
It is. I,
Judas
I,
Priest though, it's worth it. Judas Priest is worth it.
it was Uriah Heep, which we missed because we went for food, Saxon,
Yeah.
and then Judas Priest. And it's the only time I've ever seen Priest, and they were incredible.
I think I've twice, and the second time I was actually told to leave because I was too drunk. It was like in a very nice theater, and they're like, "No, no, you're with him," and they point to me, and I said, and the guys like, "Oh yeah," they're like, "Oh, you guys need to go," because we were in these nice seats, and like we were rocking out, standing up, and like yelling and screaming, and I was kind of like tipping over, and like, you gotta go. Like, I was worth it. It's fine. Now I've seen it three times actually. I think I saw him with Tim Ripper Owens once for six
Oh,
dollars.
pretty cool.
Yeah, $6, and you got two free drinks for $6. They were desperate, desperate, desperate times.
I wish I could go to gigs for $6. Well, six
Well,
the UK. But to be
yeah,
£6, probably like what, $7 or $8. So
yeah, about eight.
yeah.
Yeah,
But we were it was like an arena, but they had like seating allocated like on the
yeah,
floor of the arena, and they told us go to the wrong seats. And then when we found our right seats, there were people that were in the wrong. We were in our seats basically, and this guy was kicking off at Rob trying to have a fight with him, like this like 50, 60-year-old guy. Um,
sure. Oh yeah, there's a lot of those.
yeah, and then it was really weird. It was like the weirdest atmosphere at a gig I've ever been to because like there were loads of people about my age, like 'cause I'm like 28, so around
Sure.
like mid 20s to like 30s, whatever, who were like having a good time, and they were like the older people that just you can tell they've never been. Well, they don't go to gigs that often, and they just stood like this, like not arsed, like on their phone, and I was like, how do you not like
Yeah, yeah.
get the
I know. I was with a bunch of people my age at a social distortion show recently, and everyone's spending like $80 on drinks, and it was like their night out that month, and they're all sort of paying attention and they're into it, but it was mostly like we're out of the house tonight. That was the entire goal. So they don't care what they're spending or what they're doing as long as they're out of the house. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I go to a lot of festivals where like the older people show up, and not festivals, but like bigger shows. Yeah, there's like guys who are like, don't get near me. I don't, because there's kids going crazy through, moshing or whatever. And then there's the guys who are just like, the hell? You spilled beer on my Dio shirt. But
We recently, obviously, released the song "The Unfortunate Gentleman in Question" by Glyph, off like
mm,
Odes of Wailing, Hymns of Mourning, which is out on June 7th. So that's how we
mm,
first got in contact. So
yes.
I wonder if you wanted to start off maybe talking about that Glyph record and how.
Um, uh, I've been in contact with them for, on and off, I guess, for like a year. Just very, the internet, Instagram, whatever, how it goes. But yeah, I think we kind of we became friends first, sort of, and started talking about the project, and I was like, oh, like I guess like weighing our options and like what do you have recorded and whatever. And so yeah, and we've just been like we basically became like good friends, and then hey, let's do this record, and ever since, so it's kind of like a friendly collaboration that just sort of happened. Um, I mean, we probably decided last fall to do it, something last, yeah, summer, fall. But yeah, it's just we just got to talking a lot, talk all the time, and so it's like, yeah, send me that record. And then I mean, the record was in a process for quite some time. Like different songs were in there, like different versions of the songs. But yeah, it was like one of those things where like the more that I listen to it, or the more that I listen to one song, and then like the whole thing, and it's like, yeah, we should definitely do something. I don't know. It was one of those like I want to put out another record, and that was the next one to put out kind of thing. But it was mostly because of our relationship that I think created the ability to do it, or the will to do it, I guess.
Yeah. I really like I'd obviously kind of known about you guys because of like the Dodesra album and stuff, but like I when I listened to that Glyph album, I really, really like it. It's like my wheelhouse of like atmospheric black metal. And like
Nice.
the thing I said to Glyph as well in like a message exchange about how like the bass lines on that some of those songs are like so like melodic, not melodic, like groovy, and like that's
Sure.
kind of unusual for like atmospheric black metal. Like you don't really, when you think of atmospheric black metal, you think of like the wall of sound and the guitars. You don't really think of the bass
Right.
dragging you along. It's like
Yeah, it's usually icy and like repetitive, but the bass is like just, not it's in the recording, but you can't hear it. Yeah, there's actually a song, there's a bass line that I can at any moment. And I'm not a huge fan of, there's people who are like love bass players. Usually they're also a bass player, but
I do play
yeah,
bass.
yeah, there you go. But no, there's a part that I can think of right now that like I can play in my head that like, starts a track and I'm like, yeah, it's a very unique. I think it's a unique record. I think the bass playing and being so in the forefront, like it's not obvious, but obviously you can hear it. Makes it unique, and it's a record that like you kind of have to listen to all the way through a few times, and then you start picking it all up because there's a lot of layers and a lot of there's a lot going on. It's not a record you can just throw on and do the dishes to. You kind of headphones are probably a really good idea. And I think a couple listens is a good idea because then you get
Say
to
that.
that last track and you're like, I want to hear this again. And then it makes more sense. It grows on you in a weird way because you start hearing all those little things.
Yeah. You
And
say that,
that's
but I did listen to it doing the dishes. With my headphones on.
I mean,
I
you
yeah.
can listen, I wasn't listening to anything when I did my dishes a little minute ago, but I was thinking about it. I just didn't have the patience to find something to play. But usually it's something, more happy, I guess, for me anyways. But yeah, but it's a record that like you have to hear everything. So if there's noise, it's hard to catch all those little bits.
Yeah. I
But
think the bass line I was thinking of was in that, is it called Between Ghost and Gloom? That was the track where that's when I first noticed like, oh, this bass line is like taking me along.
yeah, it's like crawling kind of, I think. Yeah. It's like doom, 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 doom. I can't remember, but yeah, it's in my head somewhere.
I won't pressure you to sing it because I know that's a very, very awkward thing to pressure people into. Um,
Oh, yeah, I couldn't. I hear records and then my brain shuts off and I hear something else. Like my memory of music, unless I've heard it a million times, is sometimes not very strong. It's weird. I think it's because I've heard like, 13 million records in my lifetime. So
yeah,
there's only so many that I can play in my head.
I think it's a thing where, because like a bit of a tangent, but so me and Rob were in like a band and stuff, and we've been coming up with ideas. And I came up with an idea the other day, and I was like, this sounds like a passage from a Wolves in the Throne Room song or some kind of atmospheric black metal song. And I was like stressing, going, I've plagiarized something. And I was like playing through so
Oh,
many,
sure.
and I was like,
Yeah.
and then Rob's like, there's only 12 notes. If there's a chord sequence,
Right. It's
I've not
math, basically.
directly,
Yeah.
yeah, I've not like done a Metallica and taken like Diamond Head song and completely dismantled it and ripped it off.
Right.
I do
Yeah. Yeah.
battery instead.
Yeah, I told Glyph this early on actually though. It was maybe a song that wasn't on the record at first or it was, I don't remember. But there's like a descending guitar and bass line that is almost, and I don't know if we can cut this or not, but it's basically it reminds me of Voivod covering Pink Floyd because they did Astronomy Domine as a cover in like 1990, and it's like and there's this part in I can't remember the song in the Glyph song where I'm like, that's a Voivod, I mean Pink Floyd part. He's like, no, 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 and I was like, no, it's fine, it's great, it's like the best. It's one of the best things you could accidentally pay homage to. Also, because it's a band you don't really know anything about. I mean, Voivod, that is,
Yeah,
but this is actually a very akin to Voivod, and you don't even know it. So it's like one of those things where like I like it more. So even if it is very like alike to something I heard 34 years ago, or in the Pink Floyd case, like whatever 50 years ago, um, it's awesome. So that's just a side note on your off your tangent.
that's like the first Pink Floyd album with Sid Barrett, isn't it?
I don't know. It's I was punished by Pink Floyd fans. There's many of them in my age group and school and such. Like, dude, if you like listen to Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, smoke weed, and then watch this stupid cartoon at the same time. That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Drugs.
it
Yeah,
doesn't sound like a bad idea.
yeah. It's just I never got into it, and it's still on the radio in the U.S. all the time, and it was on the radio all the time. So it's like this is for hippies. Kind of is how I
I
played it
I
when I was young.
I was exposed to him because like my dad was a big like Pink Floyd fan. So when we go around on a Sunday, he'd just be playing like Dave Gilmour DVDs or
Oh,
like Leonard Cohen DVDs, and I
wow.
in my head. So
Well, that's too bad.
so obviously you like run like a a record label. Uh,
Sure.
aren't you like you do more like distribution, don't you? Like LP distribution. It's like
Um, yes, I mean, not to cut you off, but yeah, from time to time, it came up in conversation once where I'm like, I should, get copies. Like, there's a band that I used to do records for, whatever they might be. Like, I'll pick up a bunch of copies because I have friends who want to buy records for me locally or otherwise. And with like the Dodds writ, like I was reminded of this like through Facebook, but I distroed the Mortal Coil LP just after COVID or whatever it was, just because people wanted it. And I used to put out his other Christopher from Dodds Rit's previous band, Totem Skin. So like I only really carry things that are adjacent to either bands I've worked with before or bands that what will work with in the future or something like that. Occasionally I pick up stuff for, friends because I used to do it all the time. So like, oh, I need 5 copies of something or whatever. But yeah, I don't do it a lot. It's usually like one title at a time. The Dodds, it's a really good way to like bring eyes on the label
yeah,
because like for instance, Dodds was that record's huge and it's great and one of the best records this year, if not the last like 2 years. But like yeah, people will hopefully swing by and see what else we're doing or whatever. Maybe buy some other stuff, which doesn't always work. It rarely works actually, but it's nice to like pick up followers and you still make you're selling the records. You're making a little bit of money. You're making a lot of I'm making a lot of Americans happy.
yeah,
Um, you know, so everybody wins basically. So
yeah.
I
Because that's how
I don't
I
do it all the time.
yeah, that's how I found you guys in the first place. Like, because
Yeah.
my two of my well, I've got a whole pile. Like every year, I didn't do it like a albums list last year because there's too many, but this year there's a whole pile. But like the Dota album and the Narcissus album, they're both in
Oh.
there, and like you'd like
Uh
release them, and they're
yeah. That was like all I've yeah. It's so funny because I mean a lot of people found out about the Narcissus records because of Fiat because
yeah, that's how
Barry has more reach. Yeah, for
yeah, that's
sure.
how I originally found it because I know um we've like had back and twos with like Barry Ann and stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
hopefully gonna get her on the podcast soon, but
Yeah, that's what I heard you are actually.
yeah, we're just trying to figure out a date because obviously Rob's gone away now, and then it's
Uh
I don't want to take over his schedule and go, we're doing it this day. I need to communicate with him, and it's one of those, but it will happen. It's been
yeah, she's
for a
she's
while.
incredibly yeah, she's incredibly busy too. So
Yeah,
and it'll be fun. It'll happen. It'll be great. Barry's great. But yeah, it's funny that I mean yeah, it's the Narcissus record was excellent. I actually did a tape for Eric um of Narcissus for his other band Grandeur. Like I came out of retirement basically a friend of mine wanted to do a tape, and I said I'll put the my old label's logo on it. He said okay, done. And basically, like he was shopping for labels for it, and I'm like, that was in 2021, I think. But yeah, I just did like 100 run of tapes, sold the crap out of them. And it's much like other bands, but Grandeur is excellent. But it was just that's sort of how we got to know each other, and then Narcissus was kind of the natural conclusion of that. So
Yeah, I've never actually listened to that other band. I'd only heard the Narcissus record literally through the Sphere, like when it was released.
yeah,
I listened to it, I was like, this is insane.
it's
Like,
nuts. Yeah,
I don't want to
I
try
mean,
to pronounce the album title because I might butcher it, but
oh,
it
the
is,
Earl song, yeah,
yeah.
it's
I thought that might have been how you pronounce it, but it's got a little umlaut in it, so I don't want to.
oh yeah, there's that was fun. Like that because that lyric we print. I mean that record we printed lyrics for too. So doing the layout on that was fun, making sure that all the stuff was copied and pasted correctly. And there was definitely some
Yeah.
last minute like, oh no, but because there's a lot of German going on, Finnish and stuff, and yeah. No, that was fun. I mean, that record is wild, and more people need to hear it because it's even the old stuff, which is more traditional, is great. But a lot, he's in like five, six, seven, nine bands, so all pretty much one person bands, and they're all different, but they're a little bit, you can tell it's him. So, uh, yeah, no, I love that record. I mean, you know, I have them. I have lots of them. Lots isn't the word I would use, but I have plenty.
So I was wondering, like, how did you get into the whole like um record label stuff? Like, what was your introduction to it, and how long have you been?
Well, oh, well, that'll be, I mean, it won't be a long story, but it goes way back. Um, in 2006, uh, I was in a band called Protestant at the time. So there's like crusty hardcore band. And there's, a couple kids who wanted to do a split 7 inch. And the kid, when I say kid, they're like 20. And we were in our like, I don't know, like late 20s, early 30s. And they were like, we're really excited, but they don't have a lot of money, or they don't have any experience. And I had done like some distribution in the early 90s. Um, and I had been in some bands that did a couple things here and there, but nothing big at all. And we had all played together and done stuff, but usually other labels would handle it. And this time, my guitar player one day, I was complaining about something about records. And he's like, "Why don't you just do it? Why don't you just start a label and put out the records?" I'm like, "Fine, I will." And so then I started a label called Halo Flies to put out Protestant records. And at the time in Milwaukee, there was a lot of bands that were starting up, like around the same time period, the same years. And so that I would do like a 7 inch for them. And then I ran it. I was just telling the story last night, actually. I discovered Fall of Ephrata from Brighton, um, and I bought a record out of a distro box late at night at a show, and I brought it home, and I couldn't listen to it, so I listened to it on MySpace, and then I contacted them, and then we had, and then the record label thing. I did that for 12 years, 100 and I don't know, 15, 20 releases, between tapes, CDs, and LPs, and then it just became like less fun, and I was just churning out records. It was like an addiction, because you have to like keep on putting out records in order to keep the interest going. People want to know what you're doing next, and in order to move old ones, you put out new ones and all that. But it just became like financially stressful. I was spending more time on the label than my full-time job. There's records and boxes all over my house, and then it just kind of like got to a point where yeah, it was too hard to manage, and I kind of threw in the towel. And about less than 2 years ago, having a conversation like that was such a noble thing. You put out records, and like even though like you spent a ton of money and you lost a bunch of money, and but like you're putting music out into the world that maybe people weren't gonna hear about, and maybe because your label had reached a certain level that now they were gonna buy it because it was on the label, or they will listen to it. And I'm like, I don't want to do it again. They're like, well, maybe you should, like you enjoy it, because I'll dabble here and there, get excited, and you can tell that I enjoy it. And then basically one day, we were just talking about like how to do if to do a label differently, or to not do Halo Flies again, but to do something else. And then I was like, all right, new record label, let's figure this out. And it took like months to come up with a name. and I already had releases planned, like or tentatively planned, like what'll come next. But yeah, basically I've been like between distroing records at shows and putting out records. I've probably been distroing records and putting out records since 1991 or 1990, but as a label, like 2006, 7. And then Shape of there was like a basically like a 2 year break between wait, so 2024 now? There was like a 3 year break between anything Halo of Flies did and Shape of Stars. So
No, I think well with like a lot of DIY projects, like I know me and Rob basically try and do the Hornthrowers stuff, and we do like a radio show, we do the podcasts, try and if we
sure.
do bands when we can, like do like I do gig photography, we cover like gigs and stuff, and if you kind of got to find the balance between spreading yourself too thin and like overcommitting. Like we're at a point where like our overheads for Hornthrowers, like if we're getting free to a gig because we're on the press list, but like we still spend like 30 quid getting there. Well, 30 quid getting a taxi back home and then like 20 quid on the trains. That's £50 down.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's too much for a free show, but I get it. It's
But then
more
I
expensive where
get
you
to,
are.
like I get to photograph bands I really like.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
awesome. Yeah.
one of those. So yeah.
Well, it's fulfilling or something. It's rewarding. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you spend money, but you have fun, and you also it'd be more if you work at it, if you're on the press list. Then you get to do other things, and you enjoy it. Obviously, I
Yeah.
mean, I went to the show in Chicago last night, and my friend hadn't been to a show in like a year for a bunch of different reasons, and spent a ton of money on merch. We've been planning on it since like Christmas to go to the show, and yeah, long drive, a lot of time standing around, but you end up seeing old friends, meeting people, and getting to see bands you'll never see again. So it's like it ends up being a lot of time. You spend a lot of time and maybe even some money, but it was, it ends up being like, yeah, that was awesome. Because then you can tell the story or show the pictures or whatever. So it's often very worth it.
Yeah. No, it is really a rewarding sort of experience going to gigs.
It's
The thing
I get
about
the stress, I get the stress of time thing, but yeah, it is.
I feel like that as well. I feel like sometimes I'm like I have to see this band now because if I don't, not gonna happen again. And even though it's a lot of the time it will, I just
Yeah, yeah. You don't know that though. Yeah.
no, it's true. Well, we didn't know because the last time we saw Dawn Raid, we didn't know that'd be the last time.
Right,
But
right. That was really sudden.
we
I
like,
was trying to talk them into doing a record actually. We were getting really close to like figuring something out. They were about to tour the US. I don't know.
they,
It was sudden for everyone. Let's put it, everyone outside of the band, it caught them off guard.
yeah, because we've had them on the podcast. Like Rob speaks to some of them now and then, and like we saw them at like this small venue in Manchester, and then me and Rob went to a festival and they played there, and we were like, oh, we didn't know this would be the last time we ever see them, and then
Right.
we broke up and it was gone.
Yeah, they were I mean, I don't know. It's just conjecture and guessing at this point, but so I've been in, I mean, not recently, but I was consistently pretty in touch with like the drummer Matthew and Simon from here and there, and we would just talk like casually. But like, I helped book a tour for them in the U.S., like a DIY, like totally not non-visa, and I mean, I put out their records back in 2000, whatever the hell, 17, 18, whatever it was, 19, and then Prosthetic was like, oh, we're doing a CD with Prosthetic, and so then Prosthetic sort of like absorbed them,
Yeah,
but they did a super DIY tour with a band called Dogma from Michigan and played like literally like 2 blocks from my house that I'm sitting in a little tiny, tiny, shitty little bar. And then they came back and did like a more of a real sort of tour. And I saw them Chicago, and it was hilarious. It was so much fun. And then yeah, and then they were on the cover of Praying. That's what I'm getting to. At some point, I think it became like where like they've done everything they need to do,
yeah, I
and if
think
they're trying to get a message across, doing it through music maybe wasn't as effective a means as they wanted it to be,
yeah, I think that's
perhaps.
quite an honorable thing though, getting what you want from the project and then just being like, you know what, we're not gonna put too much stress on ourselves, affect each other. We're just gonna like call it quits, go out on a high. Because like that, those
Yeah,
sets I saw them play, like I don't know, I was really in tears like when they played Go as Three Companions and ended the sets because the sets they played were basically the album but without like the a cappella track and there was a
Sure. Yeah.
song missing. But like there was such a powerful set and like the whole theme of the album and stuff. Like we were like me and my partner and Rob and that we were like nearly in tears at the end because Go Free Companions were just like, oh my God.
Yeah, both times I've seen them, it's funny. In Chicago and Milwaukee, they both played in like kind of well, the one I mean, these small crowds, small venue, weeknight, and it was like even with that, it wasn't a huge show where you got the whole energy of the crowd behind you. Like they put on a powerful show for just the three of them, like
Yeah.
they could go the other way, but I I was very impressed both times. So I'm really glad that like so many people got to hear them and got to see them, and that they're such like sweet people, like and yeah, I think that it's a hard decision to make, but I think the next step would have been like, oh, now we have to play these festivals. Now we have to like tour again, record again, tour again, and because I think it was obligations. I mean, I'm just like I have no idea what the actual reasons are, but you see the schedule ahead of you at that point. Like, do we want to dedicate another 2 3 years of our lives to something that's like, oh, maybe we could use our time better. I don't know. Play different music. Who knows? Or do the activism outside of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
I
awesome how how it went down is kind of perfect. So
No, I agree. It was really sad at the time, but then you think back on it and you're like, it's like they could have carried on and not the hearts might not have been in it and it might not have been as good, but
right,
yeah. Anyway, so back to like the label stuff. Um,
sure,
I really like because obviously I'm like, as I said, I'm like a photographer myself and I
yeah,
do stuff like that. I really like how your label's like focused on like the collaboration between like visual artists and like musicians. How did you
hmm.
decide upon that and like what is your sort of like approach and like methods to like bringing that vision to life?
Well, I mean, there hasn't been that many records, so that like we don't. There's not a lot of evidence of it. I mean, it all started because of the similar conversation about like you should do a record label again, and I said, nah, I don't want to, whatever. And and basically like art director, like label partner Diane was at some day or some night she was scanning a ton of negatives and just going through like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos. And I'm like, on my phone, just like whatever. And I kind of start looking over and paying attention. And like, what is that? And I'm asking about it. Like, oh, it's nothing. I'm like, no, that's really good. That's really good. Oh my God, like that's really good. I really like that. Like I was drawn to the photography, like her photography. And I said, you know what? Well, you know what I'm gonna do? We're gonna start a label and like we're gonna start like the base like the base of it is like we're going to use like photography, yours primarily to begin with, and then it just sort of snowballed where um you know she suggested using other photographers, and so she went out sort of found other people, which will might I have no idea what's going to happen in the future with like who does what, whatever. But yeah, that was the idea. And like I had a band that wanted to do a record. We wanted to do a record together, and he's like, "I've got this painting I want to use." And this guy in my city is going to do this painting, and it's blah blah blah. I'm like, "Nope, can't do it." Like, I'm a tiny little record, tiny 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 little record label, but like, this is the idea, and if you don't want to do this idea, work this way, then we're not doing it. Like, we can't work together. But I also met some people last summer that possibly will work with, and they were like, "Oh yeah, awesome! That's a great idea. Holy shit, I love it." So like some people are of two minds. Like they want to have like Satan like licking a bunch of like demon heads in a painting, and I'm like no. Or they're like, "Oh, that's a new twist." And you see the records in person or you see the artwork. Some people are like really really into it, and those are the bands. And some it's not even like having a band on your label or having a roster like kind of used to. It's more like we'll just do a project with this band, or like if they're on a contract and they can't do LPs, we'll do an EP or something. It's more about like trying to work together. And with like the Narcissus records, there was like here's a ton of photos. Let me know what you think. There was a lot of back and forth, and or like what's the whole concept of the record. So yeah, it's definitely collaboration and chats and emails. It makes it more interesting. I mean, and a lot of it ends up being like editing and Photoshop and all that stuff, which is really time consuming, and maybe more so than like just doing some, graphic design thing real quick. But let's see. I mean, it's in its early stages, but like the next whatever record ends up being next, I mean, I have an idea. Is probably going to be like, hey, if you've got somebody, let's use your person, and we'll work something out. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was basically the inspiration for like the idea of doing it was just happening upon like I knew that she had done a lot of photography, but I didn't know there was that much out there. And all right, we need to work. We need to do something with this. And there was some resistance at first, but it's worked out so far.
yeah. Because I like looking at the Glyph cover now, and like it
It's
is really
crazy.
interesting. It is really interesting. I like how it's like the composites and stuff like that of the different statues. And so, because I know you said about the negatives, is it? I'm assuming that's digital photography.
No, it's all. I mean, it's all film. I mean, for the record stuff. I mean, but yeah, like it's a whole bunch. There's some of the stuff has been shot before. Some of it, she's gone out and shot new stuff for. Like I'm gonna find like there's a place that I know I'm gonna get a good shot. Like some of the stuff from the Narcissus record is really old, and some of it's really new. Same thing with Glyph, but it was more like, and then it was just like, I mean, the Glyph cover is so many layers because it's
Yeah,
just like
it is.
parts of a photo and a different photo, and then changing how it's how it's set into into the cover. And yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's sort of I think personally that it was like a really happy accident the way that it worked out, just the way that everything kind of fell into the cover. And there was, of course, there's always decisions. Where do you put the logo and where do you put this? Blah blah blah. But yeah, and of course, then you want the band to be like, this is great, and it takes a while. Like, oh wait, and they have to kind of sit with it for a while to say like, yeah. And then they're like, I love it. You want the person you're working with to love it as much as the person who buys it, as much as the person who made it. So
Yeah,
yeah, so far it's very. I mean, I'm impressed with it.
yeah.
With,
When I
what
first saw
what
it,
she
I was
does.
impressed.
Like she's not as much, but that's also when like you're looking at your own stuff all the time. It's harder to be
Yeah.
proud of it.
I think this is the thing though. Like I always have this conversation with my partner because they're like a tattoo artist, and they'll be like, I can notice this wrong and this wrong, and I'm like, you're looking at it from like the person who's like crafted every detail. Like for me, it looks perfect. Like I can't see anything
Right.
wrong. But then I'm like that with my own photos as well. But I also think it's kind of like anyone who makes art is kind of like I feel like if you don't have that critical like lens to your own work, you're not going to progress. Whereas
Right.
people constantly like what I've done is like the best. There's no improving. It's like I
Right. Yeah.
always got spark to keep growing as like as an artist. But
Yeah. There's definitely like degrees of pride or degrees of satisfaction. Like it happened. Like we have like I work in a chocolate company and we sell some fairly high end, like gifts, chocolate, whatever. And when a customer sees our product, they're like, "Oh my god, it looks amazing!" But we're really picky, and we're always picking on ourselves, like about something, how something looks, or how something comes out. But like from a normal, objectively speaking, people think it looks amazing. And likewise with like photography or art or music, some people are like, "That's the best song I've ever heard," or "That's the coolest photo I've ever seen," or "That's like I really see something in that." And the person who made it's like, "Yeah, it's okay," you
yeah,
know. But sometimes you have to accept that it's not going to be perfect. I mean, I just started playing music again with myself and a drummer, and I know some of the stuff that we're going to work on isn't going to be great at first, but you also can't just be like, yeah, it's not good enough. You can't quit. And so yeah, it's such a fine line between like you want people to like it and you want to like it. You just sort of it has to be some amount of acceptance, but you also, yeah, you want to try and make it better at the same time. You can't throw everything out every time you make something. Like, oh, it's not good enough. Just start over. You kind of have to negotiate with your own standards and yourself, and that goes into like putting out a record. That goes into being a band. That goes into like taking photos. I think people just need to accept a little bit that nothing's going to be perfect ever. Yeah,
yeah.
basically.
I agree. It's definitely a fine line between the two. Um, So I know you've obviously partnered with this specific um Glyph record with Fear and Wenome. I know
Yeah.
Fear doing the CDs and Wenome's doing the cassettes, if I'm right.
Yeah, kind of the inverse of normal. Well, not really, but I mean,
Yeah.
it was sort of a choice that was made. Yeah.
How
And
did
it's
that
yeah,
come?
it's the second time that I've worked with Barry on a record, that one Narcissus record and this one. Sort of happenstance, really. I mean, we talk all the time, so it's sort of natural, I guess. But
Yeah.
that will probably not always happen, or probably rarely happen in the future.
I think it's quite interesting, especially um like if you like the microcosm of like the sort of lefty sort of black metal scene. There is like a nice synergy between the different labels and like you'll always see them partnering up to release different things. It's quite like from an
Yeah,
outside
there's
perspective, it's
no,
quite
right.
interesting to see.
There's like a handful of people included in that, and then a handful of people that are not. Just because of geography, or having people have different friends. People know different people. But yeah, there's definitely like you can see it in a sort of a circle, I guess, in a way. But and I mean, I don't know Nicholas from where I know him that well. I mean, just through chats and stuff. But I mean, I've known Barry for over a decade, so it's kind of a natural thing where 2 years ago, she's asking me for advice. Now I'm like asking her for advice, and like that. So it's cool though. I mean, it's awesome. I love to see. I love to see everything that she puts out. So and then the occasional like wild successes that she's had with records, so or what have you.
Yeah.
It's pretty rad. I mean, I'm more than proud of
No, I agree. That was something I just thought about, which maybe might be a bit of a strange question, but
her. Yeah.
because I'm obviously a bit too young to have had the MySpace experience, but then
Ah,
it's the was the like the experience of you finding bands on MySpace and maneuvering around that and sort of running a label like that. Was that similar to how it is now with like because I know obviously Bandcamp's the big thing, but I feel like most at least maybe I'm biased because I use Instagram the most. Like most things seem to be run through it like a synergy of Instagram and Bandcamp. Is that a similar thing or has it changed much?
um, it's different. It's different. I think engagement is much different than it used to be. I mean, that was a long time ago. I mean, MySpace was on its way out, but I did notice, or I did wonder once, like, oh wait, because I had a record label and a band on MySpace, and then eventually we moved to Facebook and to Instagram. But by that point, the like I mean, we've deleted like Facebook pages and stuff and all that nonsense. But it's different. It's because Bandcamp sits over here, and at MySpace, the best thing about MySpace and the worst thing, but the best thing was like you've got a music player on your page, and you also have everything else. So if you imagine opening up Instagram and there's like a player in the top right corner and you can listen to all their records, it's like if you could, and there people will probably find a way to do that. There's the guy who's working for building Amp Wall, which is like kind of maybe a successor to Bandcamp. um what's his name? Chris, I think, from Woe, from New York, is building a like a kind of a better Bandcamp, more focused on like more uh I don't know, what's the word beneficial to artists than Bandcamp is. um it's kind of in its beta stages, but it is happening. It's just, yeah, it's different. You have to push people to different places, and that's the thing. It's like when you post to Instagram, then you have to post to Facebook, then you have to post to Bandcamp, you have to post to Threads, and then you have to post to Twitter. And before there was always 3 or 4 things, but I used to have PayPal buttons on my MySpace page. Like you could go and buy stuff off my distro. Like it was so like it was really off. Like MySpace was garbage. It was built like garbage, and they allowed people to put like HTML and stuff on their pages. So like you could crash your computer opening people's pages, because of how much garbage and they were like all the Flash and HTML that they allowed on people's pages. But I mean, it was kind of cool and free to do it. Now it's like you have to build stores. It's just
Yeah.
it's a little bit more. It's a little it's far more, it's less DIY, I guess, because you kind of you have to play by Meta's rules, and Meta hates letting you sell shit. They want money. And I used to sponsor posts all the time, and I did it recently, but I used to do it every single time I put out a record on Facebook. It worked, But now it's like it's jumping through 1,000 hoops to find people, and
Yeah,
it's just
the
it's
algorithm,
depressing in a way.
the algorithms change, doesn't it? So it's like if you post anything that's not like someone's face, or if you've not got a certain threshold of followers, it just won't show.
Yeah, it sucks. It's garbage. Yeah, and I was smart enough to carry a Halo of Flies Instagram. I had it, I think, whenever I joined, and then I turned it into a personal Instagram, and I turned it back into the label. So I carried the 2,000 some followers or whatever. That was very smart. But yeah, but starting from scratch is really hard, and I mean, it's hard for everyone. Doesn't matter who you are. But yeah, the algorithms just it's trash. But like, how can you leave? You know,
Yeah, no, that's the
like
thing. It's very
can't
hard
drop out.
times as well. Like if you post something that's like the highest like likes I've had on a photo was of like I photographed Catatonia and their
Sure.
guitarist who's now in Ghost played with them. So I put a hashtag
Oh,
of him and that's why I got likes on that.
yep,
I posted another photo and I'm like, it's just as good, if not better than this. No one will
right,
like and it's like,
exactly. I know. I mean, because I have like a personal Facebook page, and I don't post often, but by far the most likes are like a picture of a Green Day show that I was at in like 1991, because everyone like instantly, like it's you can't. I don't know what the word is. People are they'll easily engage with certain things,
yeah,
like like they're satisfied by some sort of nostalgia instantly or something that's crazy. We're like, oh, it's a photo of what's his face from Catatonia, like that's cool, but people don't see it unless it's hashtag correctly and all that. When it gets into that, like who sees what and why, it's depressing. I mean, because you can't figure it out. I know people do this for a job and they can figure it out, but I don't do that for a job. So
usually on the show we ask guests to pick 5 songs that have inspired them or like that they're listening to at the moment. So yeah, do you want to go through your picks?
oh yeah, I mean, I have it memorized probably because I typed it too. Um, I use the Dodsrit uh one Nocturnal Fire, I think I called it. Let me pull up my list so I don't forget. I mean, there's so many records and so many songs. Just lately, I've been playing the hell out of the Dodsrit record, and that's like the hit. It's got the sick solo on it. There's actually a song later on in the record, I don't know which one, that reminds me of his previous band a lot, and I would pick it, but it's not the song I probably remember as
Yeah.
well. Um, oh yeah, of course, as you said earlier, High Spirits. I just chose one of the songs off Motivator. All of them are great, except for Thank You for Being My Friend isn't that great. But
Oh, it is.
you love that song? I love it when if you see it live, and I've seen them live twice now in a year, and in the moment, like seeing them can be really emotional
So
because they're so like uplifting. But it's also, if you listen to it on the record, I find that it's really cheesy. But
I don't
Reach for the Glory, all the songs on Motivator are amazing. So
because
I don't know.
I hadn't heard of them. We were going to go to a festival that was on in Newcastle. So it was quite a trek to get there. The festival collapsed. So these local promoters, Biker Grave, picked up all the band, well, a handful of bands that were going to play,
Oh, okay.
put them on. High Spirits played 3 nights in a row. We only went for 2 of them, but so I saw them. The first time
Wow.
hearing them was seeing them live. And they were so good. They were
Oh, yeah.
so good. And then
Uh, it's gone.
my favorite part was like just watching the bass player and all the tricks he'd do. And I asked him
Oh, it's
afterwards.
fucking amazing.
I got to speak to him afterwards, and I asked him like, "Do you purposely pick a guy with a bald head every gig and stick the pick to his head?" Like, yeah. And the second night, I was looking for it. Like, I know he does this. Who's he gonna do it to? And I saw a guy, and I was like, "It's him," and it was. It was
Nice,
great.
nice. Yeah, I saw them in August at a really big at this power metal festival, like an hour west of here. Um, and I hadn't seen them live because even though they're in Chicago, they play Europe more than they play the US.
Yeah.
Because that's their market. And they're busy people. They don't only two of them live in the same city. So, they like basically plan it all, do a bunch of stuff, and then take a break. And and he's writing and recording all of it himself. And then they put it together. Like some of them come in and play it, obviously. But yeah, that band We could just talk about them all day, if you want.
Maybe we could.
No, they're amazing. I saw them they played a club show, the same place I went to last night. They played with like a death metal band and like I don't even remember who else, but it was a smaller club show, and it was fantastic. And I was like up front the entire time. I've actually known Chris as a singer, or known of him for like 20 years, I think. He used to do a zine called Metal. It's just called Metal. And his most in-depth reviews, the most in-depth interviews, because he used to write for Metal Maniacs, massive US magazine for a dozen. I don't know how long it was around, 20 years. But he's just really, really smart guy. Knows a lot about a lot of things. And I actually just ran into him like less than 4 weeks ago at a festival in Chicago because one of his other bands was playing. And we got to talking for a while. But yeah, they're the best rock band in America, hands down.
No, I,
Like
I agree. I agree.
they're great live. The bass player is amazing. Chris is an amazing singer. The guitar player is just like one's lead, one's rhythm. Like they're spot on. And it's like it's like the happiest one of the happiest shows you'll ever go to
No,
because it's so sincere. It's so sincere.
the show is insane as well because the lineup was like Riot, like Seven Sisters, Riot City, High Spirits, and then Visigoth headlining, and that was like that was
Sure.
the first night, and that was just like insane. And then like when I got to date like night two, I was like, I know all the words to these High Spirits songs now after hearing about them yesterday, so it was even better the second time.
Yeah, it's so catchy. I used to play it at work all the time. And someone who's not like a huge, maybe they like a couple metal records and
Yeah,
they don't listen to it, they would like started singing along the High Spirit songs because it was like it was so catchy. Yeah, I think I saw them when I saw them at the festival. It was like Unleash the Archers and like Seven Spires, and Seven Kingdoms, bunch of sevens. I don't know, but yeah, it's a big stage. It was like really really pro venue, so like it was pretty goddamn fantastic. Should we go through the rest of the list, or
yeah.
it's up
Sorry,
to you?
I
The whole
will
time. That's
go to the
fine.
rest of the list. I just had to
Oh,
pick High Spirits
oh,
because they are like fantastic.
I'm doing everything in my power. I'm trying to get them to play in Milwaukee because they've never played in Milwaukee, and literally it's an hour and a half away. And I don't book shows anymore, really, but I'm gonna find a way to get them to play here because I'm like people because a couple of friends that have seen them with me, they're like people have to see this. Like people who don't even really like that kind of music, like crazier, more evil shit, they're gonna like this.
Yeah,
People who like indie rock, they're gonna like this. Like everyone has to go. I'll find a way to get everyone to go. Yeah, Sidan, or however you say, Saidan.
yeah. It's
Um,
a band I haven't heard of before. That might
yeah,
be like a poser, I don't know.
what's that?
So that might make me sound like a poser, I don't know. Sometimes people will
Oh,
suggest a song like or an artist, and I'm like, should I know who this is right now?
you should. I mean, no, they're just like two young, really nice uh people from Nashville. Black metal, like super like Japanese influenced. Totally part of that COVID raw black metal wave, like
Yeah,
where everybody was recording their own records in 2020. Everyone somehow, like I had dismissed raw black metal as or just there's a lot of sketchy stuff and black blah 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 and during COVID I was sitting on the couch and I gave a bunch of stuff a chance and everything was just coming out constantly and they put out a new record actually just like uh fuck, a couple days ago, a week ago, I don't know what day is it. Oh yeah, like last week, their new record. But yeah, that song is just like the best song on their best record. Their new record's great too, but the guy really likes Dokken and like 80s hair metal, and also is like a real
the raw black metal and 80s hair metal is just that's
yeah. Well, the
that's
production values are there, but it's also pretty raw still. Like it could be a huge sounding metal record. I think if they wanted it to be. The drummer is great. But yeah, the guitar player, singer, he's into everything. I mean, I've heard him play like I can't think of the kind of music. Like he lives in Nashville, and basically anything that's played in that city, I think he can play. And he's really talented. I saw that, and of all of the raw black metal bands that came out of COVID, most of them haven't played live or can't because there's only one of them or two of them. I saw them play a couple fall, maybe fall of 2022, and fantastic live, actual stage presence, like running around, like basically like if you're seeing a hardcore band almost, or like a hard rock band, but they're a black metal band. So it's like really serious, but also like they're all having fun. You can tell they're having fun and trying not to smile about it.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, like it's like kind of evil, but then I look over at the guitar player who's just probably filling in live, and he's like totally smiling the whole time because the parts are catchy. But yeah, they're Satan's a fantastic. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those records that like they're just it's catchy. I like things that are catchy. So for not everything, but yeah. I did this what are you listening to thing on YouTube for my friend's channel recently, and this singer songwriter Ellis came up. She's Canadian, a raw black metal artist actually from France, Leela Starless, who's an ardent does like Dragon Keep like Dungeons and stuff too. Is actually performing in the U.S. At Great Lakes Dungeon Siege. Was just this person's also a huge Paramore fan, and I'm a huge Paramore fan. And I
I'm
like so
a
she's like,
Paramore fan.
"What's that?"
I'm also a big Paramore fan. But
Excellent.
we'll keep that away from the metalheads because if Rob was here, he'd be bullying me for it. But he's a bit.
I've seen him live. I've seen him in like a hockey arena, like 14 years ago. It was amazing. But so sometimes if they will mention a band they like, I'll check it out, either because it's a pop band or a black metal band or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, this Ellis person has a new song," and I looked at the video. I'm like, it's kind of quiet, like poppy singer songwriter stuff, like Phoebe Bridgers, but poppier, like Boy
Yeah.
Genius sort of.
I'm also a
And
Phoebe Bridges fan, so
yeah,
you
I
can.
just took off a Phoebe Bridgers long sleeve like right before the interview. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, this is catchy. And then one song comes out, and two songs. And I was just kind of in a weird part of my life where recently, when the record came out, where like there's a lot of really sad songs, and there's kind of like the uplifting but yet sad song, and it's good. I don't like to listen to the record too much, just like a Phoebe Bridgers record. Sometimes it's like you want to fall asleep to it, but you also don't put it on if you want to be happy.
Yeah,
Um,
true, very true.
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Now you're sad. So
So,
it's kind of a sad, it's melancholy. Yeah, it's a melancholy, but like kind of like bouncy in a weird way too. So I don't know. I get happy or sad when I listen to it, and then it always follows Def Leppard "Bring On the Heartbreak," the one of probably the best hard rock song ever written. But I've been a Def Leppard fan for 41 years. So I bought my first record I ever bought with my own money was Pyromania. So, and when I discovered High and Dry, it was over. And of course, they failed me eventually, as every band will, by writing shitty records. But for between that 1983 for me, discovering that and Bringing On Heartbreak is amazing. I still have all the respect in the world for that band. They're massive. They're in their 60s and they're fantastic. And that's the best song in the world, the best hard rock song for me. And it's also followed by one of the best instrumentals on a hard rock or metal record as well. So you have to go look it up now. But yeah,
I will.
yeah,
I'm
huge record for me.
I'm only familiar with like the sort of
Hit.
yeah, the hits. I think for me, like it's the same with Kiss. Like I got
Oh yeah,
like I listened to Kiss after I got into like thrash, like when I was like about 12. So I looked
sure.
at them and I was like, these are going to be like the most evil band I've heard in my life. I listened to it and I'm like, oh, it's not.
No, there's a lot.
Over
Yeah,
by Kiss because my sister's a big fan of like the 80s like hair metal stuff and like Kiss and like Bon Jovi and that, and
yeah.
she's won me over a bit. So
It, yeah, Kiss is a hard one for some people. I don't have much to say. I mean, I used to own a Kiss record. I had a neighbor when I was like 7 that really liked it, or I don't know how old I was, but I was definitely very young, and he liked Kiss a lot. It was it's in the U.S. It's like everywhere. Like it was on TV, it was on talk shows. It was like when you were my age, and a little kid, Kiss was everywhere. But they were evil because in the 70s, of course, they were evil.
yeah,
But compared to like, oh yeah, I'm really into Slayer. I bet you
that,
Kiss is heavy. You know,
that was my
it's that
exact question.
there's a lot of band, but like look at Molly Hatchet or Uriah Heep or bands like that where you look at the cover, you're like, this is gonna be heavy, and it's not.
Yeah,
It's because they have cool artwork doesn't mean doesn't mean it's heavy. But back in the day before the internet, if it looked like it was heavy, you bought it, or it had the cool guys in the thanks list, you bought it. Or the guy was wearing like a DRI shirt, you're like, oh, I bet you they're fast, or
Yeah.
you just use that to find the next band. But yeah,
It's
Kiss had it.
my dad always used to say how he'd find records because he'd go to the record shop and go, "This is the most like crazy looking album cover. I'm gonna buy this." Like it's how he found Carcass because of their first. What was the album?
Oh God, yeah,
The one
Reek.
with, like
Reek.
it's the one with like the where he'd gone into his sister's nursing textbook or like
Yeah,
surgery.
it's Reek. Yeah,
Something.
Reek of Putrefaction. Yeah,
Yeah. So he got that because of that exact reason. And like I do find that though, I think sometimes like going back to like the artwork thing, you have to match the artwork to the sound. Because if you
yeah.
get the vibe that the sounds a bit hippyish, but if the vibes are off, you're like, it's not going to be. You need it to complement it completely. I think.
Yeah, if at all possible. I was actually having a conversation with somebody recently about that, and I that when you put out over 100 releases and you're like, hey band, bring me the artwork, or here's the template, but lay it out, and you don't want to say no to the people who are putting all that time and effort in. But there's been some good record covers where I'm like, why in the hell did they put that guy's face on there? Or like it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to them because conceptually it makes sense, but
Yeah,
from a record buyer, it could be anything, and yeah, you can tell it doesn't always sell that way. Like you can tell it affects how the record does. I mean, they play live. I'm sure they sell 50 of them, but in a record store, people are like, what the hell is this? Yeah, but I mean, it's in the 80s or the 90s, even like you'd see like this is like the most messed up cover, and if it didn't look like a 12-year-old drew it, you'd think it was awesome. Like death metal stuff before it became all computerized.
yeah,
Like anything that like Roadrunner did with like Dan Seagrave's artwork, it's like, oh, I bet you that's good because it's suffocation and that sounds brutal. You just buy it. But yeah, I mean, artwork can be it's really important. It can be really important. I mean, I looked at like a couple hundred records at a record store yesterday, and I couldn't tell you what any of them look like because they all look the same, sort of like
yeah.
just hard to read logo and a bunch of like scary shit in the background. Too much blue. I don't know, like computer paintings basically. Like I don't
Yeah.
know,
It
it's too much
depends.
competition. I don't know.
I like those things that go around, on like social media where it's like blue album supremacy or red album supremacy, and it's got like these like different Bathory albums and like dissection and
Oh yeah, yeah,
the record for the blue, and then the red's like death and yeah, and
that's awesome.
then you get torn though because you're like, I really like this album and I like this album, I can't choose between them.
There's a guy who I can't remember. He was on Twitter and he'd always post all the worst album covers, and it would just be this thread of him answering himself with more and more record covers. And I loved reading those. It was just too. Twitter can be a pain in the ass to go through, and I hate it. But aside from that, it's the most amusing thing because people still make the worst record covers. You'd think they've learned by now, but no. And that's but hey, each to their own. People can do what the hell they want. I mean, these records look really, really cool. It doesn't mean they're selling better than like the super shitty Five Finger Death Punch record is. Whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree.
What I mean, like it doesn't matter. You're gonna lose or win for whatever reason. You can never tell. There's
For some
no
reason,
the
like the
perfect
most
strategy.
perfect synergy, I've used synergy so many times this podcast. The most like perfect synergy I can think of is like the Kirith Ungle albums and stealing Michael Whelan art of just like
Yeah,
of Mel Nibene, and you're like, I know what that's gonna sound like from looking at
pretty
it.
much, right?
Yeah. I think there's nothing
It,
more perfect than that combination.
yeah, there's that band. I don't know if you know that band Smolder from
Yeah.
Canada. They tour. Yeah, you would probably know. Yeah, I'm a fan, but like artwork is perfect. Like we write songs about fantasy novels, basically, and this is what the cover is going to look like. Perfect. It can't tell you exactly what it sounds like, but you've got an idea. And it's awesome, and it's also like they're amazing looking. So
Yeah.
win win.
And then I'm just thinking about Obsequiae as well in the little castles. And you're like, that's what that
Oh
sounds
yeah.
like.
Oh, let's not talk about castles.
Do you
I
not like
watched the No, I castles are great. I've been in a couple. No, no, no. I just remember what I watched the Wield and Woe
Oh
interview
yeah,
not long
I was
ago.
the one that
That
suggested
was
the Welsh castles because we had
Oh
Jeff on
yeah.
a few podcasts ago. Obviously, I'm Welsh, and like Wales has got like a load of good castles.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
The one he
No, it's
mentioned,
just like
Dinas
he
Bran.
went. There was a lot of sorry. There was just a lot of tiny little bits, about like this band and this record and this thing. I was like, whoa, oh man, I can't handle this anymore. I got to take a break. It was impressive how much like common knowledge that the three of you had about records and covers and you know what I mean, obsequiae and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was impressive, but
Oh,
I
it's
also had to
the
take a
Wield
break.
and Woe podcast.
What's that?
Were you on about the Wield and Woe podcast?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, thank you
yeah. I
for
was just like,
yeah.
yeah, I was watching it, and then I took a break because I was like, I gotta find the spot where they talk about this other thing now,
Yeah, no,
because
we do tend to wrap it on sometimes. But in
that's all
fact,
right. It's all right.
I
Well, we
suppose
did
that's
too.
what podcasts are for like
I
the rumbles and the
Yeah, I'm known for talking all the time.
yeah.
Sorry,
But
hard to
yeah.
do this.
Yeah, the
What else?
cast thing, it was like
Yeah,
Dinas Bran is like literally like in a place called Llangollen, which is like because Welsh is weird and like two L's makes a sound.
sure.
Two
I've
blocks.
heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like literally very close to like where I am. And then you have to go up like a massive track. And like I got Rob to go up there to do a photo shoot because he does like historical reenactment. So I was like, you're gonna go
Whoa.
was like, you're gonna go up this hill in like your armor carrying your shield and stuff. I'm not gonna pay you for it because you're my friend and I don't have any money. I'll buy you with some.
Sure.
And then yeah, we got to the top, took some nice photos in the horrible wind, and then went back down. And as we were walking back through Llangollen, some guy shouted, "He's got a blade," because he's got like a fake sword, and we were like, "He hasn't got a blade. It's a rounded sword designed for like hitting each other with in the safest way possible."
Oh yeah, LARPing and such. Yeah, no, no,
You
I get
can't
it.
you can't say LARPing though. They all get annoyed apparently, even though there's a
Oh,
tier system and they have to go up the ranks. Like it's like actual metal swords and stuff, but they're just
oh
rounded.
yeah, sure. No, I'm kidding. You know,
It
that's
is
cool.
it's
Do it.
LARP.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But I mean, do what makes you happy. Just do what
Yeah,
makes you happy.
he's
Makes
tried.
you happy to like do it. It's cool.
Yeah, he's tried to get me and my partner into it, and we're like, I like the idea of archery because like whenever I play like Skyrim or something, I'm always an archer because I just think it's cool. But I don't have
Sure.
energy to dedicate to
Actually,
that.
to do the actual archery. Yes, I understand. Or dress up and I don't know. Yeah,
So
I know.
that's
I have nothing else good to say about any of that. So
yeah. I
people enjoy it. That's great. That's all I have.
I can
I'm
just
more power to
exploit
them.
I can just exploit his armory for making cool photos, and that's it.
Exactly.
Small
See,
armory.
take what you can get out of it.
Yeah. But yeah. So
What else you got?
I think that kind of rounds up. I think we're going for about an hour. So usually
Yeah.
the point I think people
You-
at the point if you've got through this hour, then you are a true fan of the Hornthrowers podcast and of the Shape of Storms
Well, I
catalog.
hope so.
I also hope so as well. Yeah. It's
I mean, it's always a pleasure. I I love talking about these sorts of things. And I
same.
mean, you guys have been great. I mean, we've been talking for a while, and
Yeah.
it's always been a pleasure. So
Well, I'd hope I
I'm
did
more
like
than happy.
metal because I literally do a metal podcast. So it'd be pretty disingenuous of me if I didn't.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I know.
you have to like other things, but you also
Yeah,
have to like the thing you're talking about. Yeah,
true. I've dedicated my life because I'm doing my master's degree and I'm doing like um my thesis and stuff about like metal. It's like a creative arts master's, like an arts research master's, and I'm
sure.
doing that as well. So I hope I do like metal. I proved myself that I'm
Well,
wearing a Riferous Flame shirt,
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. That band's good. It'd be
yeah,
incredibly disingenuous of you if you
I
didn't.
know. The amount of money I spend on underground metal, like
Yeah, I'm on a break, but I have yeah, I am burdened by many records and many t-shirts
yeah.
and hardcore metal, whatever. But it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I've
it's
really been getting back into
the
hardcore
thing.
again lately. Like I don't know why. I think there's just been a few bands I've heard and I've I don't know. I think it's 'cause I've listened to Knocked Loose and they're a bit hardcore-ish. And then
Yeah, they're huge. They're like nominated for Grammys and stuff in the US. Like that's a whole thing. That's a like that stuff is a whole thing. And I we could go on forever about how, you know, whatever genres have like grown into like popular culture and
yeah,
are taking hold like turnstile and stuff like that. But no, it's great. Some of it's great. Some of it's garbage. It's fine. I mean, punk and hardcore's been around a long, long time, as long as metal has. And so,
yeah.
you know, yeah, you gotta like everything a little bit. Otherwise, if you don't, you're kind of an idiot. I guess I could probably add you can find Shape of Storms on records on Bandcamp, on Instagram, on Facebook. Um, there will be some upcoming releases this summer and fall. Mostly going in it. We're mostly turning away from black metal and going towards more of a some like hardcore and grindcore and some doom, maybe
Sounds
some
pretty cool.
post rock stuff, but nothing that I want to announce right now. But a handful of bands. I mean, I could, but I'm not going to. Basically,
That's
it's
okay.
not important until decisions have been made. And we haven't made any real firm. It's going to happen, but we just don't know how or when. So, but yeah, and I mean, I totally appreciate all the attention and the like the time you've taken to spend time with the Glyph record and spend time with me. You know,
Okay.
back and
Really,
forth with
I
a time
really,
zone
I've really
difference.
enjoyed the Glyph thing. I don't think it's that bad, the time zone, but it's usually just like I'm like at the end of my day with someone's like just having their tea and I'm
Oh
like 12 o'clock, like I'll just reply to this message.
yeah, I used to love having friends in Europe because when I wake up, I could talk to them all day until my friends woke up in the U.S. And then there's like the West Coasters who start hitting me up like, "Well, I'm going to bed." They're still out at a bar or something, and then like I've for a while, especially when I was running the other label like more full time, I could answer messages 24 hours a day based on where people lived. Almost, it was kind of
Yeah.
ridiculous. I'm like, God damn it! Like I love it that Barry's in New York because she's up before I am, so she can text me before I wake up, and it starts right away. And it's, we have a question about, we're just talking socially, but yeah, it's fun. I mean, network of friends. That's really what it's about.
Yeah. One of the weirdest ones was we did a podcast with a guy called Bill who wrote a book. What was it called? Um I'll find I'll it's Tonight a World We Bury, I think. And he's
Okay.
Australia, and that was
Oh
like
fuck.
crazy because it was like we were like at the end of our day and he was like, I've just woken up, I'm going to work soon. We were like, that's too crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend in Japan. I had a friend from Milwaukee in Japan, and she was looking for something like pointers on the town that he lives in. So I'm like, hey, Mike, I have a friend in town. He's like, I'm at work right now. The next day, it was like 6 at night here, and he was at work at like 10 in the morning. He's like, no, I started work again. I'm sorry, I can't help. I don't have time right now to answer your questions. Like, wait, what the hell time is it? It's already the next day, and you're halfway into your next day.
We shall wrap it up here as I think we've gone for an
Yeah,
hour and 20
right.
minutes. But
Yes,
uh thank you very much for joining us on the show.
of
It's
course.
a pleasure. And I will be, well, by the time this is up, there will be a review of the Glyph album.
Oh,
Uh,
fantastic.
Um, yeah, and that's that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you.